Welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We're broadcasting from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com, and on the American Guns and Glory Network, separately on YouTube and numerous other media. A new show is posted every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Our audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can find their stations at KELY1230.com. There are about 31 of them all in Nevada, none of in Las Vegas at the moment, but we're still working on that. If you have questions or comments, you can send an email to bob@firedupmail.com. Again, that is bob@firedupmail.com. Or leave a message on my recorder at my office, 702-257-1060. 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, I will respond by email, text, or telephone. Questions directed to any of my guests will be forwarded to them. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, rarely truthfully covered by mainstream media. We'll always present a few of those for our listeners' education. Most are good shootings. Sometimes they're questionable. Sometimes they're wrong. But they're all educational to those of you who own a firearm, keep one for self-defense in your house, or carry one on the street. Individual instances are always adjudicated under local law. Advice here might not apply to listeners in different jurisdictions. The stories are often paraphrased for clarity by me from translation of police jargon, what I call lawyer speak, and regional accents into standard English. The incidents are as reported, except the names of the participants are generally omitted. My guest today is retired police detective Sergeant Michael K. Bunker. Mike, a bit of your background, if you would.
Hello, thank you for having me. I was a police officer with a large Western United States Police Department for 40 years. During that time, I worked uniform patrol, both as a patrolman and a sergeant. I worked as a narcotics detective, a general assignment detective on nights, where we responded to basically all serious crimes within our jurisdiction, including robberies, rapes, murders, batteries, almost any crime of violence or any substantial felony. And my final years, I was assigned to the Organized Crime Bureau in Las Vegas.
I think I said last week, we have organized crime? Well, probably not. Since you were there, it's probably gone.
Oh, yeah. Right. You believe in the Tooth Fairy too, right?
Yes, I do. This first story comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. Reporter named David Stewart reported April 2nd, 2020. 29-year-old concealed carry license holder, we're in Chicago now, concealed carry license holder exchanged gunfire with an attempted robbery Thursday morning on the west side of town. Chicago police said shortly before 7 a.m., the 29-year-old license holder was walking in the 600 block of North LeClaire in the Austin neighborhood when a group of 3 to 5 suspects came up and demanded his money and belongings. A 16-year-old boy from the group pulled out a weapon. The intended victim drew his own gun and exchanged gunfire with the group. The license holder was shot in the leg and taken to Stoger Hospital, where his condition was stable. The 16-year-old would-be robber was struck twice in the abdomen and taken to the same hospital. His condition was unknown. No charges have been filed as of this report. This just happened. This is Chicago again, where we have, you would think all sorts of gun laws, but they do have concealed weapon permits now. And here we have a guy who had his permit and drew on somebody who was already apparently pointing a gun at him. This is a little dicey, but this is why, as I've explained to ad nauseum, why you practice. Generally, the bad guys don't. You have a reaction time generally of about 1.5 seconds. If the bad guy is pointing a gun at you, it's going to take him that long to draw your gun and fire. So you need to be able to do that in about 1 second, and then you shoot him and he doesn't shoot you because you shot him in his gun hand and it doesn't work anymore, just like on old TV westerns. It's a dicey thing to do. If he's going to shoot you and there's a gun pointed at you and there's no apparent direction you can run or get away, and in this case there's a whole bunch of them, 5, and what are you going to do? Advice, Mr. Bunker.
Well, I would have to say that anybody who is approached by a large number of individuals who threaten a robbery or demand money by threat of violence, you have a right to defend yourself. But furthermore, it was only relatively recently that while Illinois and Chicago in particular may be a huge incident where there's a lot of people shot and killed, up until only a few years ago were licensed carries allowed. So you're basically at wit's end and unable to defend yourself. If somebody comes up and threatens you and robs you, and wait for the police, which could be any length of time. A good response time would be, 5 minutes, and it could be quite a bit more, particularly if nobody else at this incident saw. I mean, the bad guys aren't going to call the police.
This is, while we're here with the Chicago story, those of you who carry on your 218 carry, your retired law enforcement officers carry, as far as I know, Chicago is still not allowing those. Meaning that if you're stopped and you're carrying in Chicago by a street level cop, probably he'll just say, you're not supposed to do that and this never happened, have a nice day. But if you get involved in a shooting, even self-defense, you are illegally carrying the gun by Chicago City Code. And then you're into Chicago's court system. Something to be aware of. We're going to stop here for a brief note from some of our friends and sponsors. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Freestyle Martial Arts, located at Jones and Russell here in Las Vegas. You can reach them at 702-551-9009. That's 702-551-9009. CCS Gunsmithing. Chris Eifelt, the man who does all the NRA help, he's at 2216 South Rainbow Boulevard near Sahara. He can be reached at 702-365-1732. Once again, 702-365-1732. Jerry Creed, a trust attorney. If you have a firearms trust or need one, this is your guy. You can reach Jerry at 702-806-7777. That is 702-806-7777. CCW Maggie is found all over the internet. You can reach her by phone at 702-375-5900. That's 702-375-5900. All sorts of firearms training, ladies only classes. She is the best of the best. Call CCW Maggie. And we're back. This second story comes to us from WTPO News 4, reported March 29, 2020, in Arlington, Virginia. An employee at an Arlington, Virginia business faces multiple charges after he shot at a juvenile who, along with 2 others, broke into the store early Sunday, according to the Arlington County Police. Police were called for a report of trouble in the 2400 block of Shirlington Road in Arlington's Green Valley neighborhood. Just before 4 in the morning, that was 4:53 a.m. in police talk, police did not identify the business. The suspects, all juveniles, were stealing cash and merchandise, according to police. An employee who was inside a secure, that's important, back room of the business at the time got a gun and opened fire on the suspects, striking one of them. The juvenile sustained serious but not life-threatening wounds. The 2 other suspects ran off before police arrived. Police identified the employee as a 33-year-old who lives in nearby Washington, D.C. The Virginia Commonwealth's Attorney's Office charged the employee with malicious wounding, reckless handling of a firearm, and violation of a protective order. The employee is being held without bond, and the incident remains under investigation. This is another high-profile case of self-defense law gone berserk. There's another one in the national headlines right now that's very similar to this. This appears to be a property defense rather than a human life defense, according to these early reports. But one would think the benefit of the doubt should at least release the shooter until his case is fully investigated. Where do you want to start with this, Mr. Bunker?
Well, using deadly force or potentially deadly force for property was changed many, many years ago. The individual, I don't know to call him the victim or the suspect, the shooter who was in the back room, let's leave it at that, could have secured himself in the back room and called the police and let nature take its course. What is likely to happen is he's going to face some serious criminal problems. And if the DA so desires, they can charge the kid that was shot with burglary. He entered now I'm using Nevada law, he entered the business with the intent to commit grand or petty larceny. Therefore, he has committed burglary. Is he likely to? No. The poor heart-throbbing people of the community will say, hasn't the poor kid suffered enough? He, the kid, the 16-year-old, put himself in harm's way by committing a felony. I'm sorry he got shot. It's not good, but he's the one who precipitated these events. But he's not the one that's going to take the major brunt of this legal action, and that's going to be the man who shot him. It's going to be a complicated and expensive defense for that individual, let alone potential civil redress against the fact that you shot him, and now I want you to pay for the medical bills of the juvenile who was shot committing a crime in your presence.
You're starting to sound like a lawyer.
Yeah. I've had a lot of contact with him over the years, on a variety of subjects.
sticks in my craw. I'm showing my age with the comment, I guess, but we'll see. I cannot understand why this guy cannot be at least released without bond. He's in jail for shooting a 16-year-old. He doesn't need to be in jail. There's probably more danger there than he is. Anyway, we're going to break, have a brief word from some of our friends and associates, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Attorney Donald J. Green, a common guest of mine on Fired Up. He can be reached at 702-409-8239. He specializes in gun case litigation. He is your man, Don Green, 702-409-8239. At Ricardo's Restaurant, where you'll usually find me eating lunch every day if I can get there, they're at the corner of Flamingo and Decatur here in Las Vegas. You can reach them at 702-227-9100. That's 702-227-9100. And Battlefield Vegas, my new kind of home for this show. They're on Circus Drive, directly behind the Circus Hotel and Casino. You can find them there with CCW classes and an amazing place for gun rentals, everything you could possibly imagine. Check out, if you're in town as a tourist, check out battlefieldvegas.com. And we are back. This next story comes from an odd source. This is from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office blog. If there's nothing else, I don't recall ever reading where I didn't have a news media involved in one of these stories, but the Sheriff's Office has its own blog, which puts their crime reports and investigations directly up on the web, and anybody that wants to can look at it. It's kind of an interesting idea. We have press conferences here and this and that, and the police department here, of course, has its websites, but they don't do this sort of thing. Anyway, this says, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office reported March 31 of 2020 in Summerland Key, Florida, an intoxicated 25-year-old man armed with a revolver was arrested early Sunday morning after attacking two women during a fight over access to his car keys. The subject was charged with domestic battery, aggravated battery, and battery on a person 65 or older. Multiple deputies and detectives responded to a residence in the 24,000 block of Caribbean Drive West on Summerland Key at approximately just after midnight regarding a fight in progress with shots fired. They searched the house and did not initially find the suspect. They did find a 73-year-old female and a 43-year-old female with a bruised and swollen eye. Both females stated they would not give the suspect his vehicle keys due to his intoxication. They started then, he choked the elderly female and punched the younger female in the eye before he retrieved a revolver. He placed the gun in his mouth and stated he was going to kill himself if they didn't give him the car keys. Can you imagine this? The neighbor heard the commotion, nearby neighbor, particularly heard the word gun somewhere in the exchange of yelling. The neighbor retrieved his handgun, went outside to protect his family. Got that part? The neighbor stated he saw the suspect run toward his house after he had the ruckus with the females. The subject tried to open his front door, the bad guy tried to open his front door and then tried to open a window. The neighbor stated he then fired 2 warning shots into the air and the subject then fled. He returned while the deputies were on scene, stated that he fled because he was scared of being arrested. Turns out he was correct in that belief. He was arrested. No life-threatening injuries were reported. The comment to the neighbor, he went outside to defend his family, is a clue. He fired the warning shots to scare the guy away. We've talked about warning shots prior, and warning shots have a lot of problems with them. The bad guy may think you're firing at him and shoot back, and all bullets land someplace, and all those things you're normally used to hearing on this show. Mr. Bunker.
I'll tell you what, it'd be a dicey investigation to say the least. The individual is obviously arrestable for the circumstances with the women. The threat to kill himself is fairly bizarre. If you don't give me the car keys, I'm going to kill myself so I'll never drive again. That's some, wow, I guess I shouldn't have driven the car anyway, you know. The neighbor coming out to see what was going on after hearing the gun and grabbing his gun, well, I can see why he would probably get his gun, but then the interpretation is going to be, was he in fear of his life or the life of his family when he went outside? He could have stayed inside and not, you know, had a confrontation with the guy. The warning shots, as we know, are basically a really bad idea. What can you say? You know, the asshole went to jail. Okay, I understand that, but the neighbor is in potential trouble given the circumstances. I doubt that the DA would want to file a charge of any kind of discharging a firearm in a public place or anything like that. But still, you're putting yourself in jeopardy when you didn't have to.
Yeah.
You know, that was the key. You didn't have to put yourself in jeopardy. Call the police. Defend yourself from inside. Protect your family. All good. Going outside to see what's going on, a little more problematic.
Yeah, it's one of my regular attorneys, Don Green, always says, you can't bring a gun to a gunfight. And that sounds like a misstatement. What he's saying is, you took your gun and went to a place where you could get in a gunfight. And who supplied the force to bring the parties together is who we look at legally as that's the aggressor. That comment that he went outside to defend his family will live in infamy. Thank you all for watching. Fired Up with Bob Irwin is on, a new show is put on every Thursday at 5 p.m. I can say that. If you go to our website, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, you will find about 3 dozen recent episodes. We'll be back next Thursday on the website, firedupwithboberwin.com, on YouTube, on the American Guns and Glory Network, and numerous other websites, television and radio stations. I get calls all the time from people on some station I've never heard of. Radio stations are free to broadcast this, as are television stations, as long as it's acknowledged where it is. If you find our show anywhere and you click on your computer subscribe, you will get a new show automatically every Thursday around 5 p.m. in the evening. Our logo merchandise, hats, and books are available at Battlefield Vegas, which is just behind Circus Circus, on the Las Vegas Strip, which, as we're doing this show, the Strip is essentially closed. Our governor just did that, decided that we would shut down Las Vegas because of the virus, and hope he's right. Anyway, This show is repeated on the Nevada Talk Network all across Nevada, Saturdays at noon. You can find it at KELY1230.com. If you search that, you will find the current show coming out on noon on Saturdays. You can set your phone to record it. I thank you all for supporting Fired Up, and we will see you again next week. Hopefully, the country will be in better shape than we are now with this virus mess. Have a good week.